Hello, everyone. Jello's here. Battle Rankings Live. What an intro. Anyway,
U.S. Army Band.
U.S. Army Band.
Yeah.
I am here with it must be Wednesday, 8 o'clock. We're playing some music that's kind of fits the theme. We're trying to make it fit the theme. And we're going to be talking about Flames of War and other things around or whatever else is on my mind. Hey, we got a very special show. We're also going to do a 9/11 remembrance, and stay tuned to that. Because Ann and I actually lived in New York City during 9/11, so we're going to talk about what we observed, because that's the only thing we can talk about, right? And so we'll just give you some insight about what we did and what happened, and what we saw and stuff like that. And there might be some stuff that you maybe you knew or forgot, or anyway. But yeah, we're going to do that at the end. But speaking of Ann, let me introduce my lovely and talented producer. Say hi, Ann.
Hi, Ann.
And Ann just got back from Dragon Con. All right. Can you see this? Is it on your screen yet?
No. What are you showing people?
Well, Ann attended some panels. This one was particularly with Star Wars. And she was there, and she was flanked by some up-and-comers.
Right.
Yeah.
You're talking about Kevin Anderson and Timothy Zahn.
Yes. I got that's what's up right there on the screen. So Ann was a panel with Kevin Anderson and Timothy Zahn. Timothy Zahn wrote the
Heir of the Empire trilogy and Thrawn.
Basically Thrawn.
He created Thrawn, yes, for Star Wars.
If you want to know who Thrawn is, he's the blue guy in the white suit. Okay.
Yeah.
And Kevin Anderson, he did the
Jedi Academy books and others. I mean, he wrote a lot of young adult Star Wars books.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the anchor was you.
Right.
So Anna was on a panel with them. So that was pretty good. So did you have a good time at Dragon Con?
Yeah, it was all right. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of walking.
Yeah, I know. Dragon Con's really spread out.
I got my steps up.
You got your steps in?
Yeah.
Nice.
You've never been to Dragon Con, have you?
No, hell no. Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to Atlanta over Labor Day. Yeah.
Yay! Oh,
it's hot.
Yeah, well, it's Atlanta. I mean, come on, it's still September, but it's still hot.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, you sold.
But actually, it was reasonable temperature. It wasn't really that bad. It was about 70. So it was actually about 80 degrees, 80-something degrees. And he's drinking his Buc-ee's cup.
But you sold some books.
I did.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I will take this time to make a public service announcement.
What's that?
If you are in the Indianapolis area, please be advised that Ray got his license. So whatever you do, stay off the sidewalks. There's our public service announcement. Okay. Anyway, there we go. Anyway, for today, we're talking about Spearpoint, and we have a subject matter expert who's going to help us with that, and Professor, yes, Professor Andrew Hobson.
Or is it Dr. Hobson?
Well, no, Professor or Doctor. I don't know. Both. Yeah, well, right. He has his PhD.
Okay, so
but he's a professor. Okay. Can you be a professor and I guess you could have your master's, right?
Sure.
No, but he has his doctorate.
Professor is the rank at the university. It's not a degree.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Anyway, you know what? This is what I've been failing to do. actually going in and say, "Hey, Andrew, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?" And then just have them give a short little
That's right.
elevator pitch about who they are. And then I should do that for everybody. So remind me that. Hey,
So-
Andrew, why don't you tell us a little about yourself for those who don't know?
Andrew Hobson, PhD.
Well, hi, Joe. I live in Indianapolis. I play Flames of War and Team Yankee. I've been playing for about, 10 or 12 years now. I work at Indiana University as a professor in the theater department. And in fact, I worked at a theater with Chris Fretz before I started teaching at IU. So that was my gateway drug to Flames of War, was knowing Chris.
Yeah, he corrupted a soul.
Oh, my God. My bank account has never forgiven him.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm going to do the tournaments. So we don't have any. Oh, by the way, so the longest day happened, and that it was like most of the people actually played all 8 games.
Top 10 finishers all played all 8.
So if you've been following that, some of us been following that thread. Those guys look pretty ragged at the end. But yeah, I know. Can you imagine 8 games all in a row?
24 hours, no sleep. Yep.
Yeah. I saw one of the score sheets. I saw towards the end there was a lot of ties.
So halfway through, they fall asleep, and
yeah, like
they played all the games. They just weren't conscious for all the games.
Well, anyway, so they did that. But as far as new games, we don't have anything new to the list, but it is wrapping up. And if you are going to get a tournament in, pretty much you're running out of weekends before the season ends. So there they are. But if you are on the cusp and you think you can go and you do show well, and you can get that good score and maybe bump you up into the top 17 in the North America. You got Gen Con. You got 3 tournaments there. Well, 2 for Flames of War.
It's sold out though, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Late War is sold out, but that doesn't mean everyone shows.
That's true. And
Yeah, experience has told me that like 1 or 2 might drop out because hey, they feel like they want to go play Axis and Allies for some strange reason. The tabletop hobby and games in Kansas City is having a tournament. That's their first. So if you can't make it out to Indianapolis, but you are in the Kansas City area, check it out. If you can't play, still check it out. I have no idea. I don't know if this is a new store, but they're new to us. Huracan, which is in Orlando, they're running 2 events, Team Yankee and a Late War. Dreamers Vault is sneaking one in there on the 25th. Asgard Games, same as them. That's Houston. But actually, we should talk about that. In New York City, they say Houston. You know why they say Houston? Because that's how the guy pronounced his name in New York City. But in Texas, Sam pronounced the same, Sam Houston.
Right.
Hence why you have the same spelling, but they pronounce them different. That's like, there's a Cairo, Egypt, and there's a Cairo, Illinois. or what was it?
Milan in Italy and Milan, Indiana.
Yeah.
right, Brazil, Indiana.
Brazil, Indiana.
Yeah.
And just Brazil.
Yeah. Well,
there's also a mile in Michigan too.
Well, the thing about Milan, when we moved here, there was a couple people that we met. They said we're in Milan, and we're like Milan, darling, Milan.
Yeah, when I moved here, I kept asking about Carmel.
Yeah. Oh, caramel. Anyway. And then also there's another tournament. Boy, there's a lot of conventions right there. Boom, boom, boom. Barrage Con, which is in Maryland. They got some stuff going on. And that'd be the end of the that's the end of the season. And then picking up for the beginning of next season, Advanced Colors. If you paid attention, they announced that they are running 2 events. Friday is a mid-war 80, and Saturday is a late war 95. CincyCon, Friday's Team Yankee, Saturday is late war. Then the 23rd, 24th is also Masters. In 2 weeks, the special person that is coming up with the format will be here as our guest, and this person will announce to the world what the format is. I don't know. I just know who the person is. I invited them, and they're going to come, and that person, you know how I'm keeping general, neutral. Anyway, they will reveal.
He sure it will reveal.
Reveal. Yes.
They will reveal.
They will reveal the format for this year's Masters. I'm pretty excited. I'm tingling with anticipation. Yeah, big reveal party, right? Yeah, and then I burned down half the neighborhood. Okay.
I'm coming over to your house for that.
Yeah, but you know what's it about reveal parties? Well,
I just frustrated everybody because I didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah, actually, we didn't want to know. So every time we go, ultrasound or something like that. When Ann had Ray, was carrying Ray, we said we didn't want to know. And yeah, Ray's looking over here. Yeah, we're talking about you. When you were
In utero,
yeah. Other than riding dangerous roller coasters, your mother, we did not want to know the gender. We just wanted to make sure you're healthy. And so we would tell all the ultrasound people, don't tell us the sex of the child. We wanted it to be a surprise, right? I wanted the doctor to say, congratulations, you have a healthy baby, something, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, the relatives were mad at us because they didn't know what to buy. And of course, when Anne was nesting, so I had to do the room, and I did it in green and yellow.
Yes.
With the sponging technique, I painted it green and did the yellow, and it was a Winnie the Pooh theme. It's pretty neutral, I guess.
Anyway, so
yeah, look how he turned out.
Continue with your
Yes, I got sidetracked. Sorry.
So you have Flames of War Masters 23rd and 24th of October.
Oh yeah, I was like, how did I get in reveal parties? Anyway, Andrew Hobson, you sidetracked me. Then you got Historic Con. That's the reason why Masters moved. Okay, so there's a good question there. I'll get to that in a second. You got Millennial Con, which is in Texas. Now, which is the Toys for Tots. They're going to be collecting Toys for Tots toys there. Game Table Adventures in New York, Ohio. They're doing on theirs November 27th. Toys for Tots. Able Company, we're doing ours on 4th. I have to pick a format. December 5th, Joe Skoda is doing Skoda Fest, and he announced that it's going to be Mid-War 105, 3 rounds. And then we still have Las Vegas Open and Adepticon and our placeholders. Battlefront is planning to be there. They are both planning to be nationals. And I just got the question from Patrick, which is, do I know we'll start up Team Yankee national tournaments again? And yes, they will. They just want to get the Flames of War going first. And then because really the Team Yankees kind of season's just begun, but we'll get there'll be a Team Yankee Masters. It'll probably be a Adepticon or something like that. We'll see.
You mean a national, not a
Nationals. Sorry, Nationals. There will be a Masters, but that's in June. Okay, anyway, there we go. So I don't know, pretty exciting. I'm glad glad tournaments are picking up. I know there's more talk out there. I'm expecting September and October to be pretty rocking. And then, of course, after Historicon, kind of dip down just a little because you got the holidays. And then, of course, all the Toys for Tots events, which are pretty much local stuff. And then start back up in January. That's kind of just my road fill for tournaments out there. What do you think? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's talk about Spearpoint. I'll let the doctors in the house.
All right.
Our SME.
Our SME.
SME. Or then I just think of Treasure Island. Is that what SME was from? I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Or Shmee, was Smee from Trevor?
No,
Peter Pan.
Dr. Hook's first mate.
Dr. Hook?
Yeah, Dr. Hook. Been in the wrong place
That's
at the
right,
right
that's right.
time.
So
Anyway.
Captain Hook's right-hand guy.
And tangent.
Yeah, that's the story of my life.
There we go. All right. Well, let's talk Spearpoint. Well, Spearpoint falls at a weird place on the mission matrix because one player has to pick maneuver and attack, or maneuver and defend. So that means that you don't actually know who is going to attack in Spearpoint. Because you pick maneuver and your opponent picks attack, then you are defending. And if you pick maneuver and your opponent picks defend, then you are defending. So
Right.
you have to think about whether or not you have a force that can actually do this and whether or not you want to attack or defend. Because Spearpoint requires the ability to, punch somebody in the face as hard as you can, or the ability to get around their flank before they can react. So it's kind of a but even if you have a face punching list, you still need mobility. So
A bob and weave list.
it is definitely, you got to be like Ali here.
All right.
Okay, so quick review. No spearhead. That is huge. That really changes the nature of the game. Immediate reserves for the attacker, ambush for the defender. It's immediate engagement, and then scattered delayed reserves. But the other thing that's not listed in here is the defender moves first, which is
it's
it's in the
right there. Who goes first?
Yeah, and that is also very big, which means that the attacker, when they deploy, have to consider, okay, can I deploy in a place where I'll be relatively secure from the attacker's first move, because they could pop their ambush and open fire on me, or they could, just line up the guns and let me have it. Or do I think I can take the damage? So if I forward deploy, I have to survive a volley of fire, but then I can move towards the objective a lot faster. Or I deploy back, and it takes me longer to get out of my deployment area, which definitely slows you down. The objectives go hot immediately.
Oh, yep.
So you have to keep that in mind. Why don't you go to the next slide, please, Joe?
There you go.
Yeah. So the fact neither side can do a spearhead move. One of the objectives is not in either deployment area, but neither side can spearhead towards it, which handicaps the attacker more than the defender, because the defender moves first. The attacker has immediate reserves that can come in the rear area, which is important because they are coming in a position where they can defend the objectives that are deployed in the rear. The defender, because they have scattered reserves, they may not bring their reserves in where they want them. And they're delayed. And it's quite possible that the attacker can win this game, or at least put a lot of pressure on the forward objective by turn 1 or turn 2. Defender has an ambush. We'll come back to that later because there's a couple of different ways that the defender can use it. The defender does move first, but because of meeting engagement rules, they shoot at moving rate of fire. They can't bombard and they can't use air. And you can't pre-range in your artillery, which is good for the defender because the defender's deployment area is really, really small. So a couple of template weapons pretty much blanket the entire deployment area. Fortunately, all infantry and guns begin dug in, concealed, and gone to ground. So that's where we are on that. Okay. Real quick, I'm going to talk about deployment of objectives. The defender, if you notice, places 2 objectives in the attacker's deployment area. So that forces the attacker to keep forces home to defend it. Generally, what I would always recommend the defender do is deploy them as far apart as possible. That forces the attacker to not to allocate more forces to defending them. So usually I would place them in the upper and lower right-hand corners of that box. The attacker, probably I would want to place my objective as far from the defender's deployment area as possible, unless there's a piece of terrain that's going to interfere with your ability to get onto that objective. So if you're running all armor and there's a house in that deployment area, make sure that you're not placing the objective within 4 inches of the house. If there's a wide open area and maybe you have an elephant or something like that, you can leave it back in your deployment area and still use it as overwatch on the objective. But in general, you want to deploy it as far from the attacker's deployment area as possible, also close to the top of the map as possible, and then also as far to the left, so you have the least amount of distance to cover. The attacker places an objective in the defender's deployment area, pretty much anywhere that you think you can access easily. I tend to put it near the top, so that if my flank march looks like it's not going to work, I can immediately change my axis of advance and still put pressure on the forward objective. Why don't we go back to the rear objective graphic there? Yeah. So first thing, defender moves first. Defender has to do a couple of things. They need to get something on a unit onto or protecting the rear objective, and the attacker is going to go for that objective. Or they should go for that objective. The other thing the defender wants to do is they want to cut off the dash. I think that's something that's sort of underappreciated. If you have your unit within 8 inches of your opponent's unit, they cannot dash. So it slows them down. So if you maybe want to move an expendable unit up from your deployment area and block the ability for them to dash towards the rear objective. So the forward objective is easier for the defender to protect because they can actually dig in right on it. They can place their ambush near there to protect it. But the attacker is in assault range on turn 1. They can come in and they can assault if they forward deploy. So that is something you have to watch out for. If you have an enemy who just has nothing but IS-2s, you can pretty much guarantee what's going to happen to you on turn 1. So you have to be very careful. Maybe you don't want to deploy in assault range. Maybe you want to deploy back a little bit so that your ambush will have time to come in and play. Scattered reserves. There's a problem for the defender because the defender may not get the reserves to defend the objective that needs defending. If I'm making a flank march and your reserves come in the bottom, you've got problems. So that's what the defender has to do. The defender has to be able to protect both objectives. The defender also really wants to cut off the dash, and the defender has to be aware of the fact that they can be assaulted on turn 1. So that is something you need to protect against. You also have the option as a defender to take advantage of your first move and put pressure on the attacker's objectives, but we'll come back to that later. Okay. What do we got next? All right. So in order to protect the rear objective, you can move a unit out to cut off the dash. Make sure that the attacker can't dash towards the objective, because a standard tactical move is only 10 inches or 12 inches versus a dash, say Bren carriers, which I believe is 20. If there's a road running up there, you definitely want to get up there. Joe with his armored car list will be on that objective on turn 1. And they will have already made a campfire and baking and cooking up that can of beans. So you definitely want to make sure they cannot dash. So you almost have to put a blocking force in. Then you have to decide what to move towards your rear objective. Something relatively mobile probably better. And you have to cover 18 inches. That's more than an infantry platoon can cover. So that's important. The blocking move will buy you some time, but it won't buy you that much time. If you could still get, I think you could still get Stuarts into machine gun range or fairly close to machine gun range on turn 2. Reserves don't come in till turn 3, so you can't count on them stopping that attack. So that's
No, yeah. And well, the thing is with them being scattered, you got 1 and 2 up in this corner, 3, 4 in this bottom corner, 5, 6 in the deployment area.
right.
So
1
yeah.
and 2 you can definitely get into range to protect the objective. 3 and 4 you can get into shooting range, but you're not going to be in contesting range. And 5 and 6 you're not going to be in that fight for at least 2 turns.
Right.
So you really can't count on it. And of course, we all know exactly how you're going to roll when you absolutely need to get that 1 or 2. So you have to count on the fact that your reserves are going to come in completely the wrong spot. You just accept that. Okay.
Right.
So we move on. Right. Now the defender does move first. So this is what keeps the defender, gives them some big advantages. So first of all, you can move out. You can dash out and you can shut down the flank move before the attacker has a chance to move. You can open fire on the attacker's force. The attacker may decide to be aggressive. The attacker may, if they decide to play aggressive, you could really hit them with some good fire. Granted, you're moving rate of fire, so you're not getting nearly as much value, bang for the buck, literally, but it is an option. At least, and some units are very good at shooting a moving rate of fire. So, for example, Americans, say Stuarts, you could dash out or you could run out and machine gun a unit that's dug in front of you. Maybe you won't kill anything, but they're definitely not getting out of their foxholes next turn. So it's a useful asset. You can't use your artillery, you can't use your air, but you can assault. Potentially, you could launch an attack into the attacker's deployment area and knock them onto their heels. It may not win you the game, but it may slow them up for a turn or 2. So that gives your reserves a chance to come in. You can ambush on turn 1, but you are ambushing at moving rate of fire. So, again, choose carefully. You may want to think about what your ambush unit is. Maybe it is something that has stabilizers, so it does get full rate of fire. It's worth considering. Most of us would probably put tank destroyers, martyrs, M10s, or anti-tank guns as our ambush unit, but they're all going to fire at half rate of fire. Versus maybe some Shermans. Shermans might be a good ambush unit. There are a couple of advantages for that. So you do have options. A really well-timed attack could actually get close enough to the defender's objective that you may be contesting at the end of turn 1. You'd have to assault, move, follow me, assault, consolidate, but you can get there. So it is a possibility. So the defender can't deploy too far back because they'll lose the game. Or sorry, the attacker.
Right.
Okay. Well, it's really what the attacker wants to do that's going to dictate the game. And it really depends on what the attacker's army is composed of. If it's a very heavy, slow list with infantry, heavy armor, and lots of artillery, if that were my list, I would probably go towards the near objective because I'm not going to have the speed to dash to the rear objective before reserves are coming into play or a good strong defensive unit moves on to the rear objective. And, if you've got something like Tigers or IS-2s, you could potentially, assault on turn 1, consolidate, and you are on the objective at the end of turn 1. And remember, objectives go hot immediately. So you have the possibility of smashing your way all the way to the objective. And if the defender hasn't dropped their ambush yet, they may not have a good anti-tank asset to stop your first turn assault. So it's definitely worth it to consider it, or at least threaten it. Mobile forces, yes, obviously they want to think about the rear objective because they can get there relatively quickly. a lot of recon, Bren carriers, Stewarts, T-34s. They have the ability to move a very long way if they can dash. And if the defender doesn't block the dash, boy, you can have a good time. So you could be, like I said, you could easily be in machine gun range by turn 2. And if the defender is moving infantry up, you could really plaster them before they get a chance to dig in. Defender's small deployment area makes it likely template weapons will find a target-rich environment. So you can't pre-range in, but after a couple of turns of bombardment, you could have really knocked out a lot of the defender's assets, or at least pinned them really effectively.
Yeah, because the spearhead, you can't spread it out.
Right. Yeah, you can't spearhead and then deploy. So you can't deploy a defensive line to block the rear objective. And you just got to kind of cram everything into a very small frontage. So when the attacker's artillery starts kitting on turn 1, there's going to be a lot of people under that template.
Can you imagine a Soviet, the guys that save on 4? You have like,
oh, good Lord,
40 stands of infantry just sitting in there.
And meanwhile, the Germans have 6 tube batteries of Nebelwerfers. Thing with salvos, or the time I played David Vigor and he had 14 Katyushas.
14?
Well, that was version 3. It was one of those weird ones. Yeah, it was not fun to be under those templates though. So the attacker can really pummel the defender after, turn 1 and definitely turn 2 when they're forced to reroll. Yeah, the defender can take the objective in the attacker's deployment area. So the attacker has to deploy something to defend them. Usually the closer objective, I will have my main assault forces protecting that. If I'm going for the close objective, I'm going for the far objective, I'll put a unit back there that's either artillery or overwatch just to sit on it. Because my guess is the defender is not going to commit a really strong push to take that objective. And my flanking forces, if they have to, they can come back to defend it. So it's a little tricky to figure out what you want to put there, but you definitely have to be aware of the fact that the defender can run out and snatch an objective from under your nose if you aren't careful. So you have to keep an eye on that. Again, if you're a relatively immobile force, you probably just plop an infantry platoon there and have it backed up by some artillery, and they just sit there. Also, you have immediate reserves. So if you're lucky, turn 1, you roll for reserves, they can move on to and protect the objective right away. So that's useful. But, they may not show up till turn 3, and the defender could potentially be contesting the objective on turn 1. So, just something to think about.
Chris here says, remember, if the defender has mobile artillery, they can use their first turn when they cannot bombard, but to move away from the attacker and spread out.
That's true.
Yep. So
maybe move them to cover the rear objective.
Or just move them back.
Right.
Yeah. Get them out of harm's way.
Right. Yeah, you can take advantage of the fact that if you are pinned, you can always say you get hit by a bombardment on turn 1 as the defender, turn 2, you can move away out of the deployment area, even if you're pinned, because you just can't move towards an enemy if you're pinned, but you can always move away and get out from under the template.
Right.
Flanking units can't spearhead, so they don't have to include recon. The speed is nice. Unless you're pushing Soviet armored cars, which, oh my God, BA-10s, they can't cross anything, and their cross country is 10 or 8. Yeah, forget it. But things like Stewarts and Lukes, a Lukes is like designed for this mission.
Yes.
Because it's very fast. It's strong enough to beat up most light units. It can destroy infantry platoons. It really takes care of it. Armored Panzergrenz, armored rifles, they're great for those. Those are really great for defending the rear objective because they can get there on turn 1, or attacking the rear objective. Panzergrenz and armored rifles, you can actually deploy them right at the front edge of your deployment area. They will withstand the shooting from the defender, and then they call their transports up from the rear, mount up, and then dash forward if there's availability, or at least advance forward. So those are good, again, good flanking units. And if the defender is pushing on the flank objective in the attacker's deployment area, they can cover that as well. So, but remember, the defender moves first, and that can be a big asset. Can be for the defender, and it means the attacker really has to think about, can I weather the fire from the defender on turn 1? If you can, great. If you feel like you can, great. Deploy forward. If you don't think you can, deploy back and then move into a position where you can fire. So, yeah. If it is really important to move towards the objective on turn 1, you really have to defend farther forward, and the defender will shoot at you and potentially do a lot of damage on turn 1. So that's important.
Okay.
I think the Japanese are right. This is wordy.
Yes. That's what it's. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
the defender, yeah. The defender has to react. I mean, the defender, has to look at what the attacker is going to do and try to guess what it is. Like I said, if I'm looking at across the table at an armored car list, I'm feeling very confident that they're going to go for the flank objective. If it's, like I said, Tigers and infantry and that are, on foot and, I don't know what else, maybe a bunch of flame tanks, flame KVs, I feel fairly confident they're going to go for the forward objective. And that's going to determine what unit as the defender I want to move towards the flank objective. Because if it looks like the push is going to be very hard on the flank, I'm going to take one of my best units and move it there. If it looks like the push on the flank is going to be relatively light, I may just move a couple of, some light armor or some recon onto it to defend it. So we'll see. The defender deploys first. So the defender has to figure out, do I want to be in a position where I can just spray the attacker's deployment area with fire, or do I want to sit back further and let them come to me? You have to decide. And then the attacker is going to look at your deployment and then sort of decide whether they want to forward deploy or not. So you have to watch at what your opponent's doing and figure out what they're giving you. The ambush is a tricky one because you can use the ambush to blunt the assault on the objective, on the front objective. You can use the ambush to shoot into the flank of the flank march, or you can pop the ambush and then move it onto the rear, move it towards the rear objective. I've had a couple of times I played this. That was their ambush, was what was going to go cover the rear objective, which seems like kind of a strange waste. But what I realized was that if it doesn't look like the defender is going to move any units towards the rear objective, I'm going to go after the rear objective, even though maybe that's not the best possible move. Then they pop their ambush and they dash onto the objective, and now I've suddenly got this, light armor force that's suddenly running into 8 T-34s or something like that. And that really changes the calculus. So sometimes having a mobile ambush in this mission is more important. You may want to have a mobile one rather than, say, pack guns. Pack guns, you know exactly where they're going to go. You know exactly what they're going to do. But mobile unit and ambush, you have options. Again, the defender may not want to deploy as far forward as possible. You really have to look at what the attacker can do. If the attacker can launch a major assault on turn 1, you really want to think about deploying farther back. You may want to pop your ambush on turn 1 so that when the assault comes in, they can fire in defensive fire. Even if when you pop your ambush on turn 1, you may have, your moving rate of fire, you may not have any really good targets. It's a good insurance policy. If you wait till turn 2, the attacker assaults, drives you back, you're already sitting back on your heels on the objective. They may have blocked off a bunch of the great ambush positions. They may have 2 or 3 units on the objective, and your ambush is not going to be enough to drive them off. So you really need to think about that. So dropping your ambush in a less than optimal, turn 1 move is not necessarily a bad idea. So.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Last option to make the game interesting is what we call the Hail Mary, which is the defender decides right from the get-go that they are going to try to win the game by taking the objective in the attacker's area. If the attacker has very few units, it may be possible to overwhelm them. Say they decided, hey, I've just got 2 tiger platoons. You pop your ambush with, say, M10s. It destroys the tigers. Meanwhile, you have some other units dashing forward to assault maybe the 1 infantry platoon there. They get on the objective. Basically, game over on turn 2. There's nothing they can do. The defender could put one of their attacking units on the table rather than putting it in reserve. Usually we put, if we have mostly infantry army, we put our armor in reserve because it's mobile, because it can get into the fight quickly. Maybe we put one of the infantry reserves in and, go for it on turn 1. That's a possibility. It really depends on what the attacker's list consists of. So if the attacker deploys further back, you could actually get onto the objective on turn 1 with little or no interference. Now you have to be careful. The attacker does have immediate reserves. So if they roll a 5 or a 6, a unit can roll right onto the objective or very close to it. If this tactic fails, you're probably going to lose the game. This is really an all or nothing approach. You don't.
Yes, but it'd be glorious.
Oh, it would be. But there are definitely days you see a list and you go, there is no way I can win this game when that entire list is on the table.
Right.
I have a bunch of conscript infantry and you have a bunch of IS-2s and Katyushas. I know that once those IS-2s start rolling, there's literally nothing I can do to stop you. So I have to figure out a way of beating you before they can all get going. A safer approach is to keep a mobile unit within striking range of an objective but out of sight. Basically, you're just keeping a force in being. And all that's going to do is tie down the attacker's forces. If I have a little cheap recon unit that's in a relatively safe position but is within dash range of the attacker's objective, the attacker had better not move forces off of that objective. So you can use a relatively cheap unit to tie down a relatively expensive unit. And that way, again, you're reducing the amount of force the attacker is bringing against your objectives. So it's very annoying for the attacker that you have to cover 2 objectives, and it makes the flank march very dangerous because the forces that can protect the objective are now on the wrong side of the table. So the assault up the gut is maybe the safer bet because you've got a substantial part of your force between the defender and your objective. And then your artillery parks just lives up by the second objective, covers that. And then because you're a jerk, you take 1 recon platoon and you dash it towards the rear objective or move it towards the rear objective just to force the defender to cover it. So both sides have to really think, in terms of mobility. That first screen you have with all the arrows really shows all of the things you have to keep in mind. This I would say in many ways is the most interesting mobile mission.
Yeah, I'd say so. Because there's it really depends on what the formation is of both the attacker and defender.
Right.
What are you going to give? What are you going to take? What are you going to push for? How aggressive do you want to be? And it plays on a little bit different dimension. You got 2 near and 1 really far away. Right. Objectives. Yeah, and as the attacker, you just can't go hell's bells because you have to protect behind you too.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And you have to be careful if you don't want to get shot to pieces on turn 1.
That's correct.
So, I've got my hero T-34s. Yay. okay, but I'm still taking, several tanks and several pack guns on, even if the rate of fire 1, that's enough to cripple my attack before I ever get a chance to move. So now I have to deploy farther back.
Right. How many times have you played this mission?
I think 4.
Okay, I played it once. That was with Charlie Clay.
I actually really like it, and I've had the advantage of winning as the attacker, losing as the attacker, winning as the defender, and losing as the defender.
Okay, so you've had a little taste of everything.
Yeah, and I don't, because there are so many ways to win or lose, it's not really formulaic, at least not yet. I'm sure in time we'll sort of all develop our sort of formula tactics. But it really comes down to what the two forces are, because it really, Flames of War is kind of a rock, scissors, paper game.
Right.
And this one kind of accentuates certain kinds of rocks more than others. So, a good mobile force could really do well, especially if it's up against a really immobile, scissors.
Sure.
So, also it's a good way to avoid pack front if you're attacking, because you can just sneak along the side. And they can't get their pack front off there to knock you off the table.
Right. Well, I'm actually looking forward to playing this a little bit more. So
I find it a lot of fun.
Yeah. I just wish I would run into it just a little bit more often to play it. So, but I am looking forward to it.
No, but it's complicated. I mean,
actually, there's a lot of nuance to it. That's why I want to play it.
Mm-hmm. Well, also, I think your philosophy of opponent, map, mission works really well, because there are so many variables that you really can't plan ahead for it too much.
Yeah. You have a question, which is cool. It's what this is about. Austin is asking, is this an infantry-friendly mission, especially for Hungarians? How could it be?
It is not particularly infantry-friendly. Because if you're an infantry, well, I shouldn't say that. If you have an infantry force that's good at attacking, then yes, it probably is. But if you have an infantry force that really relies on digging in, it's going to have a hard time, because that rear objective, you have to go 18 inches to protect the rear objective. If it's an infantry list against an infantry list, the rear objective may not come into play. But if it's an infantry list against a mech list or an armored list, the infantry is going to have a very hard time.
Yeah. Austin replies, he thinks an aggressive infantry force would do well. I think, because
I think you have to be aggressive.
Yeah, and Fretz throws in there, if you have enough smoke.
Yes, if you're not playing Russians.
If you're not playing Russians.
Sure. Well, he's right, because you can, if you're making a flank march, you drop a smoke screen, to protect your flankers, so that the ambush from the deployment area can't knock out the flank attack. Or if you're coming straight at the forward objective, assaulting into the defender's deployment area, again, having smoke is really useful. Yeah. Smoke would definitely be a plus in this mission.
I think so. And board, how the board is, how much cover you have will say a lot too, because maybe actually, even if you were an aggressive infantry company defending, and you went, your first turn just went straight across that first objective, maybe there's some vehicles there versus armored
rifles with bazookas.
Yeah,
get in there. And
you never know. Fred's mentioned about the Truscott Trot for the U.S. Yeah, when you want to get there in a hurry, yell at them some more.
Or you could use the Truscott to cut off the flank march, because you Truscott with Truscott's 12, right? Or
no, I think normal cross country is 12.
Okay, Truscott's 16.
It's just a little bit more than 12.
So 16 inches, that's far enough to cut off the flank, because you only have to move 24 inches. So that means you've got an 8-inch Yeah, you're within 8 inches of the edge of the board. That means the enemy cannot dash past you.
No, it's 14 inches.
14. Okay, so you got to go and follow him. You got to get at least, but even if you forget to follow me, you fail to follow me, the commander could still get within 8 inches of the edge.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
I think infantry could do it. I just think it's going to be harder because you lose the speed. And if you lose the speed, the defender has a chance to get onto the objective, either with their forces from the deployment area or their reserves.
All right. I think that's pretty good. I think it's one. And one of the things about so this is the fourth one we're doing, and the thing is that I've noticed a pattern. We really talk about the setup, and the first move. After that, it's just pretty much playing the game. Because this is a game where you do not have the time to redeploy. So you got to put your units in the right place at the right right off the bat, and then and then execute. Okay. So I don't know if anyone's noticed that. We don't talk about turn 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, right? It's all about, hey, put yourself in the strongest position as possible, and then it's just regular playing the game because you got your units in the right spot, and then you chip away. Hopefully, there's this thing some people talk about the power curve. As you take away assets, their power curve diminishes. That's what you're looking for. You're like take away their major assets. Power curve, their power curve starts diminishing, and it's so the power curve starts diminishing, and then of course it's hard to catch up.
Right. But this one also is you're trying to make enemy units do what they're not good at, or trying to take away what an enemy unit is good at. So, for example, cutting off the flank march, I don't care if your unit has a 40-inch dash. If you can't dash, I've taken away your best asset. I've taken away that unit's best ability in this mission. Or if you have a really great assault, if I deploy my defender's area back a little bit, now you can't assault me in turn 1, at least till my ambush pops and proceeds to devastate. At least have a chance of devastating your assault forces. So the idea is you're trying to sort of take what the enemy can do make the enemy do what they're very bad at. Right.
Yeah. Actually, what's to give them choices, but just bad ones?
Yeah, I'll give you lots of choices, all of them bad, as Panzer Dan used to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that was the day I just could not roll a 6.
Oh. That helps.
Was a rewarding afternoon. You could just see him getting redder.
Well, I think if you, not you, Andrew, the people at home who are listening to this, if you enjoy this, like us, follow us, smash that like button, as the youth says. Follow us, become a member of Battle Rankings here on Facebook or on YouTube, or the 4 people that follow us on Twitch. It's something. Anyway, we got a lot more followers on YouTube, and I know we're well over 100 on YouTube now. Probably getting towards 150.
Yay!
And on Facebook, it's
9,000 some before monetization.
Yeah, right. Yeah. By the way, if you watch this in reruns and all of a sudden an ad comes in, it's been monetized. But as long as you don't see an ad, it ain't monetized. Anyway, so
I don't know what kind of ad they would run with this.
Geez, the mind only wonders,
Sans belt slacks and cargo shorts.
Actually, this is probably what it would be. It would sound something like this. When the time is right.
We'll be sitting in 2 bathtubs side by side.
2 bathtubs side by side. That's probably what they would advertise here. Gee whiz. That'll be just my luck. Anyway, when the time is right.
That's right. You'll know it.
Yeah,
Throw a
you'll
football
know.
through a hoop, yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
You kids
And,
will learn one day.
Well, we'll see.
Or there's viewers in like Estonia. Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan Meyer says it'd be Game Workshop ads. Yeah, I don't think they buy advertisement.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, I've never seen them advertise. I mean, they got their own magazines, but I think word of mouth is theirs. Well, anyway, by the way, if you do like what we're doing, yeah, hit that like button, the thumbs up button, or the hug button. That actually helps promote this, and then more people will actually get to see it. The way the logarithms work. So I am told. I guess with that, we are going to, okay. So we're going to talk about 9/11. It's the 20th anniversary is coming up. And
It's this Saturday.
yeah, it's this Saturday. So in the 20th anniversary, there's probably, Andrew, I don't know if I ever talked to you about 9/11 or
No,
what
I don't
we
think we
did.
ever talked about it.
So this will be new to you and most everybody. So Ann and I kind of discussed a little. So we're going to talk about what we did. What actually prompted this was Ann's place of employment asked her to write an article on 9/11 specifically, and she wrote about her day. So
A little bit.
a little bit. Well,
More, it was like more than what surrounded or the days following it.
yeah.
Yeah, because it was interesting.
Right. And that's what we're going to talk about. Since Ann and I actually lived in the city. Actually, let's talk about the World Trade Center itself. Since we're in New York City, so this is going to be a little bit more New York City centric. We know about Shanksville, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, but we were in New York City, so this is the stuff that we looked and saw and things. But as some of you may know, or maybe some of your younger ones don't know, the World Trade Center was in a lot of media. We got the Simpsons episode where Homer actually parks his car in the plaza where the World Trade Center was, and there's a lot of tickets on his car. And then there's the King Kong remake in 1976. Thank
you, Andrew, for mentioning that.
Yeah, Andrew mentioned that, and I'm like, oh yeah, that. Because I by the way, I forget about this one. I think about the 1930s one.
Yeah,
right?
it's not really worth
Yeah.
thinking about too much.
Yeah, it was the beauty that killed the beast. And of course, who can forget Escape from New York, where he takes the hand glider and lands it on the roof, right? But I don't know about you guys know about this. By the way, it's a good thing he's French because that last T is silent. Philippe Petit.
Petit. Yes.
Petit. When they were building the two towers, he actually snuck up there with some peeps, and he tight-roped across the two. Talking about having a set. Yeah, they made a documentary on this. What was it called? Man on the Wire?
Man on the Wire, yeah.
Yeah, Man on the Wire. At one point, he actually lays down in the middle on the wire, looking up, just laying down. Holy mackerel. Anyway, later on, he gets a special escort by the New York's finest when he comes down. But yes, this is when they're constructing it. Matter of fact, you could see here in John Carpenter's picture how it was finished. It was not quite finished yet. But yeah, can you imagine by the way, they did use a crossbow to get the string across, then got the rope across, and then the wire, and then secured it. By the way, he's securing one side, and someone else that he needs to really trust a lot is securing on the other. Hopefully it wasn't. Well, can you imagine that? your spouse is securing the other side, and maybe got into a little argument or something like that in the morning. It's
Stop.
What?
I do believe
Stop.
I do believe it was his girlfriend who was on the other tower, and I also believe that at that night he had the company of yet another woman to celebrate his triumph. He made a special friend that day.
Well, he does have a special set, doesn't he? Well, anyway, the Empire State Building, the Twin Towers. A lot of lore around it and used. So we got here. This is Manhattan, right here, and then the Bronx. Actually, New York. It's a hell of a town. The Battery. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down. New York. That's how you remember it.
Bronx is up and the Battery's down. We were in the Bronx.
Yeah, we lived in the Bronx, way up here, by Van Cortlandt Park. The name of the little section of town we lived in was Van Cortlandt Park Village. No, Van Cortlandt Village, right? Yeah. And so we had many apartments. We had one, and we would take the one train. And I worked in Midtown, right by Macy's. I was in the schmatza business. Yeah, that's Yiddish for rag. I worked for a 4th generation Jewish owned apparel company. What was interesting about them, they were originally from Poland, and they moved here in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You don't meet too many Polish Jews. Huh. Anyway, great family, loved them. Matter of fact, Ann and I, we'd still be there if it wasn't for the fact that there was no way that we could ever afford a house. So, great family. They took care of us. They loved us. They wanted us to stay. We just couldn't. Anyway, that's why when Ray was born, we needed a house. He needed to be a yard and that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I worked in Midtown. It was right by Macy's. And then the World Trade Center was down there by the Battery. The reason it's called the Battery, it's because that's where the cannons were to protect the harbor of and the entrance of the Hudson from raving marauders. Okay. Anyway, so I'd take the one. It was a 1 in 9 at the time. I think they got rid of the 9. I think it's just the one train now. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's been a while. Anyway, so take the subway on down. Got a lot of reading done.
I actually worked down by the World Trade Center up until about 2 weeks before.
Yeah,
the World Trade Center went down. I was laid off. We had the .com bust, because remember we had all the .com boom. Everybody was building websites and hiring these companies to build their websites and blah 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 blah. So I went to work in that industry, and suddenly it imploded, and a lot of people were laid off. And so I was one of the victims of that. And it was 2 weeks before the World Trade Center went down that happened.
Yeah. So, and we're what? Caddy Corner?
Yeah, Kitty Corner of the World Trade Center in Trinity Place. Basically, 2 buildings up from where Alexander Hamilton is buried in Trinity Church. So, a couple things to note, historical things. And some people might not know because with the World Trade Center is in February of 1993, the World Trade Center had a car bombing. Basically, same people. They ended up killing 6. I looked at most of them maintenance fellows. Well, yeah, because they bombed the basement.
Yeah,
the parking garage.
The parking garage, and did a lot of damage.
That's when I first moved to New York.
Yeah, right. And then also 1993, Ann moves to New York City. In 95, I moved to New York City. Now, why did I move there?
Following me.
I followed you. Yes. And so I took a chance, and then Ann and I ended up getting married in September 27th. See, I remember in '97, and I was been married. So we're going on 24 years. And another thing to note before we go into the thing is that in the year 2000, my mom came to visit with my half sister, and while there, one of the things to do if you want to see the best way to see the Statue of Liberty is take the Staten Island Ferry, because it just goes right by it and it's free. So you get on the ferry, you sit down, you drive, you know, the boat goes right by it, hits the dock on the other side. You get on the returning one, and then you come back and you get to see it again. And you're seeing the Statue of Liberty. I mean, granted, what am I going to take my mother and go up the steps?
Mm-mm.
What am I, crazy? Anyway, so that's the best way to go see the just a pro tip for if you want to take people. The thing is that it was getting late in the day, and we on the agenda was to go up in the World Trade Center. Well, we went through the base, we went through the lobby, and my mom was getting hungry. I said, okay. And we ended up going to Little Italy down there, what highly recommended. But here's the thing. As we were leaving, and I said, well, you know what? They're not going anywhere.
So
Right.
it's your fault.
It is my fault. I'm like, I jinxed it. Okay. Now, some people might not know this, but the night before, on September 10th, Monday Night Football was the Giants versus the Broncos, which the Broncos won 31. So a lot of people were watching football that day, that evening, and probably came in a little bit later than normal. All right. By the way, I looked up who the quarterbacks were. You ready for this one? It was Brian Greasy of the Giants, of the Broncos, versus Kerry Collins of the Giants.
Okay.
Oh yeah, let's play. Where are they now? Well, Brian Greasy is Bob Greasy's son, who was for the Dolphins. Yeah, he was part of that. They didn't lose a game season. Won a Super Bowl or two. Anyway, but the morning of 9/11, it was actually a gorgeous day. It was like in the low 70s, not a cloud in the sky. But it was also another thing going on.
An election.
Primary day.
Yes, it was primary day.
Right. And I decided, you know what? I could do the primary before, but I decided I was going to do it later. Now, another thing is a lot of people decided to do primary before. So they go and vote, then go in. So that's probably another reason why there wasn't as many people. I think as many people should have been around those buildings at that time.
Usually it's 50,000 people.
Oh, yeah. It's
Easily. In those towers.
So between the game and primary, I think people were running late. Now I took my number one train. I take it from 238. You can look on the map to Penn Station. So, and I get I go into the office, and I have one of these receptionists there at the time, who was kind of the receptionist trope of a kind of a little gossipy, gossipy. Thank you.
Gossip.
Well, she goes, she's all excited, and she says, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I'm thinking, okay, a Cessna, right? She goes, no, I think it's bigger, or something's going on. So we had a workout room. It wasn't that big. It was about the size of a bedroom, a standard bedroom. It wasn't that big, and it had a shower and stuff like that. One of the owners had a heart attack when he was a little bit younger. So when they moved into this place, they put in a workout room where he can do reps. Well, the thing is, why he was doing that was Roy. Why Roy would do his reps, he had a TV in there, but he didn't want to get cable because cable was to run cable into a building at the time was kind of unheard of. So the only way he would get a station was through rabbit ears, and we weren't too far from the Empire State Building, and the only thing he can get was Telemundo. Okay, so if he was in there and he would be doing his reps and everything like that, and I would come, if I had to talk business, I would come in there and I would talk to him, and I would say, hey, blah blah blah, but he's watching these Telemundo soap operas. And of course, neither one of us speaks Spanish, but you do know what's going on. Okay. And I would look, he would look, and I would say, between our business conversation that we were having, I said, why does she leave him? And he's like, I don't know either. He goes, I can't, I don't know why she stays, or haven't they figured out, or who is the father? And so anyway, so that was, years of Telemundo. I don't remember the soap opera, but I just remember the people in it. So I went and turned the television on, and lucky me, I just turned it on to see the second plane hit. Yeah. So, okay. We know game's on, right? So we left that on, and so now we got the two planes that hit. And of course, it's no one knows what's going on, and things like the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building are now being evacuated. You got a lot of things going on. The police's fire engines. I mean, it's just going nuts, right? And so now we have a small room. Now we have pretty much half the office in the small room, and the other half is listening to a radio. And so it's Telemundo, right? Now they cut off their normal and they got their news people, right? And they're going Spanish, boom, 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 boom. And we had a customer service person who was bilingual and was doing the translation. And so we're getting news. Now, one of the things that happened is that most, like NBC, ABC, CBS, those kind of people, their antennas were actually on the World Trade Center. The only person that had a antenna that was television, they were on the Empire State Building, was Telemundo. So Telemundo was the only thing really broadcasting TV at the time, unless you had cable. Then the most amazing thing happened.
Telemundo went into English, right?
They went into English.
Right.
And it was like, no. And now, for our English-speaking people, we realize that the only people, because the other things are out, we're going to go every 15 minutes, English to Spanish and back and forth. And the thing was, I'm like, my God, their diction is perfect. It's amazing.
Well, they were probably Americans that spoke Spanish, Joe.
I'm sure. In New York City, I'm sure they were. But, they were both bilingual. But it was like, and matter of fact, everyone else was a little, wow, my gosh, listen to that. And he goes, oh, and his Spanish is amazing. Okay. Anyway, so we got the thing with the Telemundo and the going back and forth every 15 minutes. So we're doing that. Now, I'm going to tell you something. That's a third-party story. Ann and I have a friend from New York who's a forensic engineer. A forensic engineer is someone who figures out how things fall apart. He worked for a forensic engineer company, of course, and
Still does.
He's probably one of the country's premier forensic engineers. So he figures out why things will fall apart. Andrew, I don't know if you remember when Milwaukee, they were building their baseball stadium. Yeah, and the crane fell down. Yeah.
He was on that.
He was the guy that figured out why. The bridge in Minnesota.
Yep.
The Turkish airport that fell over that could in an earthquake, it was supposed to be earthquake proof. Things like that. So he had all these, I thought it was neat assignments. But him and his guys knew that they were going to get the call. So they took equipment up, photograph, video, that kind of stuff. And they were, where were they? Soho, right?
Yeah, they were Soho's south of Houston.
South of Houston.
So basically, it's like a kind of East Village, lower than East Village area.
Yeah, a little lower in East Village. That's where their office was. They ran up to their roof and started filming. So they put video equipment together. They were starting snapping pictures. They knew they were going to get a phone call from someone, right? Well, anyway, as they're taking pictures, he says to us, it looks like debris falling. So I put the telephone lens on, and then I realized it's people. And at some point, he stopped counting. Mm. And I just remember him saying, what the hell is going on up there that they feel like they have to jump? Anyway, so, and then as we know, we were watching,
He did work on the project, by the way.
Yeah, actually.
He was down there in World War.
Yeah.
Walking through the debris, yeah.
Okay, I'll finish up Glenn's story. The people that rented the World Trade Center called up his company and hired him that day. Because the thing was
Port Authority.
No, he didn't work for the Port Authority.
Okay.
He worked for the people that rented the building.
Okay.
Port Authority owned the building. Now the thing is, they had $1 billion per incident, and the insurance company said, "Well, it's one incident," and so they said, "No, it's two incidents, two buildings, two planes, two incidents, right?" And they, he took the stand and showed why it was two incidents, and they got awarded two incidents. It's $2 billion. It's a lot of money. Anyway, so you won the case for their client. I'll get back to Glenn in a second here. His name's Glenn, by the way. So eventually, so back where I'm at, so we're watching. Eventually, one of the towers falls. Then about 20 minutes later, the other one falls. Of course, now everybody's worried about loved ones that they have down there. I had a programmer that was working for me. His dad was a consultant down there. The good news is that everyone in our office, their loved ones, they were all fine. What they ended up doing was people needed to go somewhere and nothing's running. So, they a lot of them walked to our office because they knew there. And being an apparel company, and I mentioned the gym with the bath, people came in, took a bath, and then of course we had apparel. Now, Mike Stutzman's dad in urban hip hop clothes. I mean, anyway, he's a more scholarly gentleman. Yeah. That's usually in a suit or something like that. He's a consultant. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we found stuff for people, and being an apparel company, you have that kind of stuff. So,
you ended up making dog booties.
Okay, yeah, all right. So Ann brought that up. So later on, during the rescue phase, which didn't turn out to be much of a rescue phase. The search dogs were cutting their feet up, their little paws. And so the city put out a thing to the apparel companies. Hey, what can we do about this? Well, actually, it's funny. This company, they had a uniform side business what they did the jackets for like police officers and stuff. And they also had a urban hip hop thing. Okay. Well, anyway, so we got the call on the police side, the police fire side, and about something. How can we protect the dog's feet? And my first invention, I invented dog booties and how to put them together. Now, of course, you don't see dog booties all over the place. You walk into Petco, do you see dog booties? You know why you don't see dog booties? Dogs don't like to wear booties.
They do that. Yes, right.
But the concept worked. It was a micro ripstop fabric with what's the
Velcro?
no,
Or
not
a tie?
no, the stuff that collapses. It spans and collapses.
Spandex?
It's like spandex, but something like that. And then a rubber
Elastic, you mean?
Yeah, the elastic. That's it. Elastic sewn in on the top so that it covered the dog's foot, so you could just pull it over. And on the bottom was a coated rubber that we could do, and we made a whole bunch, shipped them up. They tried it out, and they just like, after watching Doggies, I'm like, yeah. I go that maybe we could use it. Maybe we could market it as tormenting cats. Okay, so anyway, so that invented that, didn't go anywhere, so it was pretty good. But the heart was in the right place. By the way, if you ever wanted to meet a depressed dog, that was the time. Yeah, because the dogs were looking for people and can't find them. Another thing that was going on, people started lining up to give blood. Mm-hmm. So the afternoon hours, people were starting to line up, going to the Red Cross and start donating blood, thinking that there's a lot of people hurt. It turned out not to be the case. Also, but the end of that day, since I was the only managerial person that lived in the city, I made sure everyone else got home when they either had cars or stuff like that. And then eventually, I it was like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I recorded a message on our PBX phone system saying that by orders of the mayor's office, that the office will be closed, for the foreseeable future. If you want us, call, da, da, da. I just remember that. And then I went, the subways were running by that time. And I go down there, and by the way, there was like no one on the street. No one on the subway. I get on the subway. The only people there was a family visiting from Iowa. Mom, dad, 2 kids, and they were just trying to get back to, I think, their hotel, and look at them. I said, "Well, you picked a hell of a day to visit New York City." But I guess let's talk.
Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the Post. You want to talk about your day?
I don't want to bore people, but
all right. Well, okay.
I mean, mainly I was stuck in the South Bronx because I went to the unemployment office.
Yes.
And since everything stopped running, I was stuck in the South Bronx, and I had to find my way home. So that was interesting. Yeah, I managed to find a what they call a gypsy cab, which is an independent cab driver.
Under the radar cash.
Yeah, basically, yes. They don't have medallions. They're usually limos. Or Lincoln Town cars or things like that. So,
they were the Ubers before Ubers.
Yeah, they're Uber before Uber, and I took one of them and managed to get home. But I did see the Telemundo station broadcasting in Spanish because I walked into a laundromat that I had to look, and I saw the Twin Towers on fire, and they were talking in Spanish, and I figured, that's interesting. So yes, I did find a really nice gypsy cab driver to get me home though. So that was interesting.
Well, post event, which a lot of people don't know unless you actually lived in New York City. Actually, New York City won on a war footing.
Yeah, it was amazing how quickly everything. I mean, because I had my appointment. I went in. The guy said, "I'm going to get you out of here quickly because we have, a plane just at the World Trade Center." I came outside, got on a bus, and it went maybe 50 feet. And this is about a span of maybe 25 minutes from me. It was 9 o'clock when I got my appointment. Came back out 25 minutes later, got on a bus. It went maybe 10, 15 feet and stopped and said, "We're sorry. All transportation in the city of New York has been suspended until further notice. We don't know when we're going to be moving out again." And that's kind of like a little scary. And of course, all the freeways were shut down. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything just.
Bridge, tunnels,
Everything. Boom.
So.
And it fast.
Yeah, fast.
Very fast.
Well, but at the days after that, they were on a war footing. And one of the things they were doing was pretty much every corner had a Humvee with a 50 cal on it on top. And, and I'm thinking, are there rounds in there? I'm thinking yes.
Yeah,
the national,
armed soldiers in the subway station.
Police officers and the National Guard all had the same. I don't know what the whatever the M16 looking weapon is that they have, and they all had gas masks strapped to their side. And I'm thinking, where's my gas mask? Right? To no avail. So you had to deal with all this, and everything kind of moved a little bit more slowly, a little bit more deliberately. Things like our connection to our factory, which was in Mississippi. The old AT&T building was taken out because it was down there also. So we had no T1 line. I mean, you had to deal with all this stuff. But so they are looking for, so why they were looking for survivors? A couple things were going on. There were volunteers passing out food and water. Okay. And it was amazing how many of them were single women. It was basically single woman looking for a fireman. Are you a single fireman? Okay. Now, you think, this is not anecdotal? No, because Thanksgiving, later on for Thanksgiving, we go to Aunt's sister's who lives in New Jersey. What was it? What was Bob's sister's names?
Amy and Mia.
Amy and Mia. Who did they bring with them for Thanksgiving? Firefighters. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, really? They're like, yeah, we went down there. We were passing out food and water. And I like to meet Hank. I'm like, okay. I see where this is going. Yeah, it was, anyway, a lot of ladies looking for firemen. Another little thing was there was a lot of things going on, and a lot of misinformation about shock. The news talking about why they're down there moving equipment. Maybe they might collapse another building or something like that. And I was talking to Glenn. I said, "Oh, by the way, the news is saying that this building might collapse." He goes, "Man, I don't think so." He goes, "I wouldn't be standing in it." He goes, "No, this building looks fine. It's a good building. Ain't going anywhere." Yeah, other than Tower 1, 2, and 7, I think was the ones that went down. 7's the one where everyone says is the conspiracy theory one. Why did 7 go down? Anyway, I think I know why 7 went down. The Secret Service actually had a fuel depot in there for their cars. And I think it caught on fire.
Yeah.
I don't think they say that. But we know the Secret Service had their cars in there. And they probably filled the cars up with gas in there. And it probably caught on fire. And they probably brought down the building. Just saying. I'm just, theorizing. Who am I? I don't think it was thermite on the joints of the building or anything like that. So anyway, so Glenn's telling us, yeah, everything's, this building's fine. I just inspected it. Then what's by the way, one of the things that came out of it was a slogan: "See something, say something."
Mm-hmm.
That was that was the thing that came out of that. But Ann, I got a little section for you here. The funeral services.
Well, actually, I was singing. They started adding services every night, masses every single night, and so I was switching on and off with another singer singing these masses. And of course, they had me up in front. And I'm watching people come in from Ground Zero, all covered in dust and crying. I mean, how it was pretty hard to sing those. I did sing some funeral masses. Specifically, the one most memorable to me was a firefighter who had twin boys, and they came into the mass holding his helmet that they found at Grand. They found his helmet, didn't find anything else. So that was, yeah, there were some really hard, services. What was cool though is that the mayor himself or one of his lieutenants would be at every single funeral. So every single funeral of someone who died in 9/11, the mayor himself or someone who represented the mayor, like one of the top three, would be at the funeral. Somehow he managed to cover them all.
Oh,
that was, kind of cool.
I'd hope so. You remember there was the funeral for the firefighter in our parish.
Mm-hmm.
The synagogue across the street came outside to listen to the services that was being broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
They it was so many people. They put speakers on the outside, and as you know, Orthodox Jewish people don't go into other people's churches. They didn't need to. They just came out of their synagogue and listened to the.
They stood along the street and listened.
And to pay their respects. So it's pretty cool. Some unity there. Yeah, and it was right next door to the synagogue, right?
Dust.
The dentist, right? Dr. Hertz.
Dr. Hertz,
which we brought up before.
Dr. Hertz.
Yeah, Dr. Hertz. He was right next to the synagogue. Anyway, so. We're bringing it all together. So if you've been watching this,
we don't want to go on forever. We probably should. Andy,
I'm gonna wrap up one thing.
What's that?
Okay, so when I go to Ohio for my monthly business meeting, I actually travel through Urbana, Ohio. Mm-hmm. Do you know what's interesting about Urbana? Other than it's the home of two B-17s. As you come into the from south going north, you come into the town, they actually have a 9/11 memorial. So they have concrete structures where the corners were the size of the footprint of the building. And in the center of it is a piece of metal from the World Trade Center.
Now, we have one here in Indianapolis too.
Well, I'm sure we do, but this is Urbana, Ohio, which is like in the middle of nowhere. And I remember driving by it, and I'm like, is that a 9/11 memorial? And it was just, and I've been thinking about this recently, is that Urbana, Ohio cared enough to raise the funds, put it up there, and keep the funds, and thinking about, and by the way, on the anniversary, they put flags around of those that were in the thing, and it's designed for that. It's they got a local artist to do the whole thing, and it's pretty cool. I just wonder if something happened in Urbana, would New York City put up a memorial for Urbana? I'm just going to throw that out there. Anyway, that's kind of our point of view of 9/11 remembrance. We generally don't talk about it, but we were there. We were there with 10 million of our closest friends, so that's our perspective about it and what we observed and what we saw. So I hope all of you learned something or took away something.
It was a very interesting time. Andy. And what were you doing on 9/11?
I was getting ready to go to work, and I heard the first plane hit the tower. And I thought back to when that B-25 hit the Empire State Building, and I was like, oh, it was probably an accident. Didn't think too much about it. And then the second plane hit, and it's like, oh, this is for real. And then I realized that my father was flying out of Boston that morning.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I basically stayed home from work waiting to hear from him. But of course, the phone networks were basically down. And then at some point, my boss called me. He's like, are you coming into work today? And I said, well, I will as soon as I hear from my father. So eventually I found out that he was fine. So I went to work, and absolutely nobody was getting any work done because we were all sitting there, all in the back smoking and spreading and speculating on what was going on. And all the rumors were just crazy. Like, the FAA can't track 300 planes in the air. They don't know where they are. So basically expecting planes to come raining out of the sky at any moment. And then they got scared that there was a unidentified semi-trailer in the alley behind the theater. And they thought, oh, we're right across the street from the state capitol. It could be a truck bomb. So they were, debating whether or not to call the police. So, nobody was thinking clearly. Everybody was, it was such a big unknown. We just didn't know what was going to happen. So, needless to say, no work got done that day.
Well,
it was really quiet in New York.
Oh my gosh. I mean,
it was like suddenly silence.
It was.
It was the quietest I've ever heard that big city. It was really other than actually we had another time.
Yes, the blackout.
The blackout, which
that was the quietest.
That was really quiet.
Oh my God. Yeah, you can hear a baby crying from 3 blocks away. Jeez.
Oh yeah.
But it was quiet. And I remember the only noise I could really hear that was above everything else was two F-18s.
Oh yes.
Buzzing around.
Yeah, you could hear there were
fighter
planes.
Yeah, they were
patrolling the coast.
Patrolling the skies over New York, and there was a couple over DC and stuff like that. But anyway, I think let's kick it up a notch and cheer it up. Let's
do we want to do Poetry Corner, or do we want to go on?
Let's just do Poetry Corner and then wrap it up.
I don't know if I want to read Poetry Corner.
You don't? Well, does Panzer Ghost want to read?
Panzer Ghost wants to either.
What?
All right.
Well, Panzer Ghost is in contemplative mood tonight.
Oh, I got to pull up the screen. You ready?
Right. For what?
Poetry Corner, read by Panzer Ghost. Take it away, Panzer Ghost.
Okay. Oh. All right. So this is a new one. This is about Troy and stuff. Okay. So in front of Troy, as fate revealed, Achilles met on the battlefield the queen of all the Amazons. A duel, he thinks. I'll get it right on. Amazed at first, he then felt weak as he clapped eyes on her physique. Ooh la la. More angel than a person at all, but the queen had frailties and could fall. So we must see, have it all at hand, what Achilles himself must understand. History puts things under a magnifying glass. Here we've copied a little story. For all the tank types we have here, there's always the same key idea. Recruits, they learn in their first year to keep hair on and keep head clear. Get the enemy up close on the attack until you can give that one a good thwack. Give him a nip, then increase it a lot. Test him with a body shot. How's it going? Keep an eye on it too. What'll you do to him or him to you? Profile, will he tighten the noose? Hit his weak points with a bang, loose. A tank can explode into many sections if you know the type and its imperfections. To the fight, the queen brings a lass, in case anything should come to pass. Achilles likewise brings a friend to keep the girl away his end. Achilles with strength unabated, his queen bee has him frustrated. The royal woman did then veil and got his flesh under his shield. He retreated to the reserves, above all just to calm his nerves. He didn't show where he's been hit. The heel for him is a sensitive bit. Achilles gets closer to his foe to reach his sword to and fro. So now for cover and advance, two different things for importance. Take cover until you can say I can attack without delay. So here he goes, give him some lead, shooting at what's up ahead. Secondly, attacks will misfire if they curve without covering fire. Mostly, tanks are not independent. They go at least with one other attendant. But even two sidekicks thick as thieves won't miss a trick or be deceived. Watched over by the rest of your kin until you've done the enemy in. But only show your front best side. Think of Siegfried's weak bit of his hide. Smartly exploit what your enemy lacks, so do to him what he do back. He'll be ready to start a scuffle, but won't quite believe all the kerfuffle. For every surprise attack, give your advance extra thwack.
Well, they actually fit the word kerfuffle in there.
Kerfuffle.
Nice.
Very good.
You know what I'm thinking that is? Basically,
is a German word. Kerfuffle.
Yeah. It's you just keep them in front of you, keep them in your forward arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, which, by the way, that is
And bring people with you.
and bring people with you, right?
I just noticed in the picture that Panzer Ghost is riding a Segway.
Yep. Well, you have to get there somehow, right? Yep. He's reading a book and a Segway, and he's got a letter opener.
There you go. 6
Well,
plus cross. Yep.
So, I did you learn anything new today? And
Keeps them in your forward arc.
keep them in their forward arc. Andrew, did you learn anything new today?
I did. I learned about Telemundo.
Telemundo. Yep. Did I learn anything new today? That Spearpoint has a lot of
Layers.
Layers.
Upon
Layers. Like an onion.
Like an onion. It'll make
Yep.
you cry.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to playing that again, and with your words of wisdom on
I
it.
think your crocodiles will like Spearpoint.
I think they would
If
too,
they
because
start on the table.
yeah. Anyone still listening? Learn anything new? Put down the paintbrush and go ahead and start typing something.
There you go.
While they're doing that, Andrew, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Owen says, I'm glad there's no test, Dr. Hobson.
There may be, Owen. On Thursday, I'll do a multiple choice.
Yeah, you guys will all put him to test.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Tom learned that someone can win Spearpoint.
Sozer Point. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably what he means.
Yeah, Sozer Point's a much different mission.
Yeah, true. Or Sour Point.
Sour Point. Remember Sour Patch Kids?
Oh yeah. But by the way, they still have a website.
Oh God, why?
Jonathan says I always tie in Spearpoint.
Okay.
But you know what? I think if you take what you learned today, you could turn that tie into a win.
In.
Yeah, remember,
Right.
if
Go back.
you're not watching this, your opponent is.
Go back, watch YouTube, freeze frame on the PowerPoint pages. You can get all the
Words.
nuggets of information.
Yep, the words of wisdom. I think with that, we're going to wrap up. We'll be back next week. Actually, let me see. What are we going to do next week? Next week is... next week is No Retreat with Chris Jackson.
Ooh.
And we're going to be rolling, and we should be doing our Toys for Tots announcement. So come on back. Tell a friend, tell other people, come and watch this. And we'll be catching you guys next week. Yeah, and Want to go ahead and play us out?
Sure. I'm picking up the America the Beautiful from the middle.
Okay,
Just like-
American the Beautiful.
Is this like a John Williams arrangement of that? Kind of
Who
thing?
arranged this?
I'm
Kinda-
not really sure.
Yeah.
I know it's played by the Army Band, but it
Okay.
sounds like a John Williams arrangement, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was waiting for the dun 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 dun.
There you go.
Big swell.
That band can play. Oh boy.
It's a nice arrangement.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, big ending.
This is what sounds like John Williams.
Yeah. I
Yes.
feel like I'm watching the end of a black and white movie.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.